Hey, and that is our wonderful countdown. What is good, everybody? Happy Wednesday. I hope you're having a wonderful evening. I hope you're enjoying your meal. It's your girl Aretha, your realtor and trusted advisor, bringing you win-win situations with integrity to inspire financial freedom for you and your family. And I have a special guest with me, Quentin Hardy, the qualifier in the house. What is up?
Hello. Good to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. You are definitely a powerhouse all by yourself, and I am definitely honored to have you here. And thank you again.
Well, I'm honored to be
So,
here, and I'm certainly not going to argue with those comments. It sounds good.
definitely. So if anyone has any questions so far, please feel free to comment below. Feel free to ask any questions that you have. Quentin is definitely a specialist in mortgaging. So you got a realtor here, you got a lender here. So you definitely have a double combo where you have a wonderful team to get you started on home ownership. So without further ado, we're definitely about a good minute in. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward in sharing my screen, because what I did was I put a wonderful July edition of my magazine just to celebrate 4th of July and really hone in and talk about single family homes and multifamily homes and what is the difference between the two. It is a very distinctive difference, but some people really have a hard time really seeing the difference between the naked eye. So I definitely wanted to take some time to really show not only how easy it is to be able to find out, but also how important it is for them to be able to know the difference, especially when you're going to be a owner of one of those types. And also, the importance and the pros and cons of how that can affect you later on in the years after owning the property as well. And Quentin, he knows a lot about that, don't you?
I sure do. My first home I purchased was a multifamily, and after that, we sold it and bought a single family. So I've lived in both, I've owned both, and I've financed hundreds of both.
Definitely. So you are definitely in the right place, definitely to find out more information on single family and multifamily homes. So as you can see here, here's my July edition of the magazine. And just without further ado, I went ahead and I just wanted to show you one that we definitely were honoring this time, 7 p.m. Nothing has changed. And here are different live streams that we are definitely platforming from. Instagram, unfortunately, is giving me a difficult time, so I'm trying to figure out a way to be able to do that. If you guys have any suggestions, definitely please comment below. But that's definitely something I'm running into. So without further ado, most people imagine their dream home to definitely be a single family home. Let's just, not even around it. Most of the times your idea of is that white picket fence, the one door, the garage, and kids playing in the yard, and you just have the lovely single family home, and there's nothing wrong with that image. But it's definitely far from the only option. We definitely want to be able to expose everyone and plant the seed out there that you can be able to be an owner of a multifamily home. Multifamily homes where several units are becoming increasingly popular, especially here in New York. A lot of people are turning properties from single family to multifamily based off of the coding in the neighborhood. So that is definitely something you can be able to find out. If you already own a single family home and you're thinking about, man, I want to have a multifamily home, you can always find out from your builder's area and be able to find out what the zoning is for. So that way you can see if you can be able to change that. Because they're definitely enabling owners to live in just definitely one unit and rent out the others to be able to create income, passive income for you at that. Everyone likes to have a nice little check every once a month. Don't you agree out there, Quentin?
Absolutely. I
All
know when
right.
we purchased our first home, we relied on that second unit to help pay our mortgage. Mathematically, it was something we needed. Qualifying for a one family wasn't easy, but qualifying for a two family in our situation worked a lot better. And yeah, that check from that second unit made a difference.
Yes. And believe it or not, a lot of other homeowners are definitely that same tactic where they're buying the property and their mortgage is being covered by the other units in their home. And we can always be able to talk about different options on that personally, on how we can be able to make that happen for you in your individual situation. But moving
Mhm.
on, there are also ideally for multi-generational families as well who definitely want to live under the same roof. That is also another option for, like, example, um, say you and hubby has had an empty nest for quite some time, and great grandparents, they definitely want to move in, clear things up, and they want to sell their other property and definitely have a little more room. You have another unit that's available with a separate kitchen and everything, where they'll have their own area. That's definitely something, another option as well, where that way you can still have a close eye on your elders and all your family members, or even for your children. You want to be able to provide them another place to live, but you guys don't want to live together. It creates a sense of privacy for sure. And definitely, to help learn more about these different styles, we definitely like to dig more into why this is important to you to be able to know, because it really makes a difference in residents and retaining the area. So for example, you take my neighborhood, Brownsville. So a single family home, you can find a double unit, and it's about 5 people in the neighborhood. When you get a multifamily, it increase the population in the neighborhood as well. So you also want to take that into consideration. So
Mhm.
if you live in a long, like, little remote neighborhood, having a multifamily would definitely not hurt at all. So definitely each unit will have a multi-unit when it comes to a multi-family home. So for example, there's one kitchen on one floor, another kitchen's on the second floor, and one floor has 2 bedrooms and one floor has 3 bedrooms. That's another considered a multi-unit. So definitely multi-dwelling is definitely what is in, and has definitely been a really good popular way to be able to have passive income. So that way you can be able to not only live in one part of the home, but also create income for yourself in the future. Is there something that I may be missing that you think you might want to add here, Quentin?
Well, one of the things I think that I found very interesting about owning a multifamily, and you might be getting to this, so I don't know if I'm adding it prematurely, but is the possibility
Yeah.
of increasing your appreciation. For example, let's say you bought a $400,000 home at the beginning of 2020. Well, we saw about a 13% appreciation across the United States. I'll just use 10% to make the numbers easy. But that means if you bought a $400,000 home and just lived in it for the year, at the end of the year, you had an increase of $40,000. 400,000, 10%, 40,000. So it's like you made $40,000 just by living in your house. You didn't have to do anything. That's one of the important things about increasing equity and owning real estate in your primary residence. Now, that's all well and good. And what's really cool about that 40,000 is it's not income, so it's not taxable. It's equity. But imagine if instead of a $400,000 home, you bought a multifamily home that might be carrying a higher price point. Maybe it's worth 600,000 or 700. Let's just say 600. That means instead of you making 40,000 increase to your net wealth, which is a 10% appreciation, you got 10% of a $600,000 property. You started off with a more expensive property to begin with. You experienced greater appreciation, but you were still paying only one mortgage. And in that case, you even had somebody helping you, the second unit. So you may have paid less out of pocket and gained more through appreciation. So this last year was like record appreciation, 15% in some neighborhoods. But if you're looking to grow your real estate portfolio, even if it's just your real estate portfolio consists of one home and the one you live in, using a multifamily is a way to get a higher price point without getting a significantly larger out-of-pocket mortgage because someone's helping you pay that mortgage with the second unit. You were going to say that though, right?
Of course, of course. Having multiple people on the loan, why not?
Absolutely.
I love it. Love it. Love it. But exactly, appreciation is definitely the key here. And he's just talking about as far as living in a home. He's not talking about the improvements that you're going to do. I
Yep.
mean,
Just
just imagine
living in the
future.
home and paying your mortgage, you are increasing your net worth. You're making money.
Exactly.
And you gotta live somewhere.
Exactly.
You're gonna pay. The thing is, you're paying appreciation for someone. If you don't own the house, you're paying for someone else's appreciation. So I just figured I'd rather own
Definitely in the neighborhood. Exactly. I'd rather own it. Exactly. And it's just one of those things where ownership is key here. And
Absolutely.
just like Quentin is, that's the key of ownership is when you own the property, you appreciate the property. And then once you appreciate the property, you're literally building your own net worth at that point. And then if you sell the property, you're even building even more equity where then you can even buy a better property in a better neighborhood, or even yet buy more properties in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, or you could keep the multifamily and now move into a single family later.
Exactly. So does anyone out there, I see we have like a couple of watchers there, and I thank you very much for joining us. Do you have any questions out there, any other details that you would like for us to dig into as far as what the difference is between a one unit and a multi-unit home here? Because we definitely want to be able to give the public as much opportunity and information as possible to be able to make the right decisions here. So, and again, as you can see here, it says, although, multifamily homes have several units, one person usually owns the entire property. Okay. So this distinguishes multifamily homes from condos, complexes, and, other, different types of homes where a person owns each and every single unit. With a multifamily home, it's usually one person or how many people are on that particular loan. They're the owners of that unit, that multi-unit. Mm-hmm. So because owners have multi-units and homes that, definitely they rent out, they're probably among the, real estate investors. And that's why you hear terms as of gentrification, things like that. And that's why you'll hear where a lot of people are just like, I don't want to sell to an investor. And then, unfortunately, with that type of perception, it makes it really difficult because there's also a good chance where multi-generational families can also, again, like I said before, live under the same roof. It doesn't necessarily have to be an investor that's looking to buy a multi-family home. Not everyone looks at someone that has cash or has the equity to be able to buy a multi-family home as an investor. Also, although they're definitely very common, you definitely want to there's more the demand of single family homes. There's nothing wrong with single family homes. Some people own multiple single family homes. And it is definitely always a great way to be able to provide for your family as well. Again, so single family homes, they have definitely been more of the square footage, more larger, have more private yards, private driveways. Some even, have an extra space to definitely spread out, things like that. So you definitely have to gauge what is definitely best for you and your family when you're making a decision on if you want to get a single family home or a multi-family home to be able to build the best equity and make the best situation for yourself. That makes sense?
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we all supposed to do. I know, again, for me, my first one was a two-family home because the math worked. That's what we were able to afford. It wasn't necessarily the perfect neighborhood, the perfect house, but we also knew that our first home didn't have to be the dream home, and our first home didn't have to be our last home. But it was more important to get in, into ownership and play the ownership game rather than stay on the outside and keep wondering and waiting.
Absolutely, sitting on the sidelines, right?
Not a good idea. Got to be in it to win it.
Never, it's never, real estate is not a spectator sport, that's for sure.
No, it is not. It is not.
All right, and that is the presentation for and the distinctive difference. And I also took some time where I wanted to take to really like show everyone the difference between a single family home. If you guys are still there and paying attention, please comment 1 for single family, 2 for 2 family, if you think it's a multifamily. I don't see any comments in there. People are still watching, but people are quiet. That's okay. So if you're shy, this is a single family home, internalizing, get it. And it also does have shared drive. No, this one definitely is these are driveways. This was more than likely like in the Queens area. Then here, these are also multifamily homes. So these have multiple units. As you can see here from the downstairs, like it has a door here and it has multiple boxes. That's how you can really tell. And then here is another nice single family home. And as you can see, the differences, like with the single family homes, you have more yard, you have more garage space, you have more privacy. And then like I was showing you here with the multifamily home, it's still, you have your own unit. Up here, you have your own balcony. So it really depends on how much unit you have. And then the added bonus, you don't have to do the yard. You don't have to mow the lawn. You don't have to shovel the snow. So sometimes having a multi-unit, it comes with its benefits for sure. And here's another example of another single family home. Again, with the beautiful long yard, you have your own porch, things like that. And then here's the last and final example. And this one's a little trickier. This one's a multi-family home.
I see a lot of mailboxes.
This one's a multi-family. Yes, that's exactly the giveaway. The multiple mailboxes and the 2 doors here, as you can see. So this is definitely like probably a 4 unit.
Obvious. I didn't even see that. Yeah, 2 front doors should have given it away.
So yes, it can get a little tricky, but you know, that's what you have specialists like me for, to be able to
say, Quentin,
really
that's a front door. I need a specialist to tell me it's a front door. Yes.
Listen, you can pride door with the back door is crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's what I'm here for. Like literally, I help with the whole digging deep, looking into if there's violations on the property, things like that. So yeah, it's really helpful to have a great team behind you. So yeah, that is definitely everything that I had to say. Quentin, I know Quentin has also another great vision on how you can be able to be a great homeowner and a build-up on how you can be a homeowner. Quentin, take it away.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit of my story. And by the way, Aretha, I know you mentioned I'm also a published author. I've written a couple of books. The books are on Amazon. You can buy them for $10 a piece. But Aretha is kind enough to give them out to her viewers. If you reach out to her, she's going to put a banner up. If you reach out to her before the end of the month, July 31st, we can send you either one of these books. Let me know which one you prefer. One is called A Guide to Becoming a Homeowner for African Americans. Yes, it is different for us. And these are physical books, so we have to actually physically mail them. And the other book is How to Be a Superhero Homebuyer in the Long Island Market. Now, there's a lot of Long Island specific stuff because that's where I live, but there's some good information. But basically the information in here, if you're African American, you're going to get all that information in here without the Long Island piece, but it's more of a focus on some of the differences for us, including one of the main differences, in my opinion, why I wrote that book, has to do with the idea of generational wealth, the wealth gap, and building wealth. And Aretha, you might know this one, or you may have already read it in the books. I know you've got your copies. But if we get people to respond to this is my favorite question to ask people because people generally don't understand this. When we talk about the difference between being a renter and being a homeowner and wealth, probably the one word that building wealth comes down to is ownership, whether it's ownership of businesses, equities, assets, real estate, whatever it may be. But according to the Federal Reserve, the average homeowner has a higher net worth than the average renter. And I don't think anyone is surprised by that. However, how much higher is a tremendous question. If I were to ask the people on this call, and if we can get some of the folks to respond, write down your number. What do you think? How much higher is the net worth of the average homeowner versus the average renter? According to the Federal Reserve, is the average homeowner worth twice as much, 3 times as much, 5 times as much, 10 times as much? How much higher is the average net worth of a homeowner versus a renter, according to the Federal Reserve? But Aretha, since you're on and I can hear you, what's your guess?
My guess would definitely be 10, maybe 20 times worth.
Ooh, yeah. Now, see, you think out of the box, because I said 1, 3, 5, 10, and you went to 20.
Yeah.
It's 44 times.
Wow.
Right. That's the face everybody gives me. No one gets it right for 2 reasons. One, because it's such a ridiculously high number. And of course, I frame it in a way that you won't get it right by saying 1, 2, 3, 5, or 10. But it's 44 times. And you can Google this. And these are the last statistics before we had this 10%, 13% appreciation. So the gap has gotten wider. But basically, the average homeowner has 44 times the net worth of the average renter, according to the Federal Reserve. So when I tell people who don't own a home and I'm speaking to them, they go, oh, this is kind of difficult. You got to fight for it because it is so worth it. For most people, the single greatest thing you can do in your entire life for financial impact, financial growth, is to buy a home. The single greatest thing. And you have to spend this money anyway on housing. It's probably the greatest thing you can do for your children and your children's children that you may not even have yet, is to become a homeowner because of the way it impacts the net worth of your family and your family to come. I know for me, and again, I get to it in both of the books, I tell my personal story, is I'm a little bit older than Aretha, maybe a lot older, but I bought my first home, my wife and I bought our home in 1998 for about $160,000, 85 Evans Avenue in Freeport, New York, 01520. I mean, it's public record. We bought it for, it's like 159 of the seller's concession, but let's just say 160. But 5 years later, we sold it for 320. It had doubled in value in 5 years. And the bottom line is there was no thing that I could have done with the income that I was earning in that time to have accumulated 160,000. And understand, this is not 160,000 of income where the government takes half of it. This is 160,000 in equity. So when we bought the house for 160,000, and I had to have my father-in-law co-sign, my mom and dad gave us some gift money to help. My father-in-law and mother-in-law gave us gift money to help. And it was a two-family. We had to jump through all the hoops and do all the things to get into that house. And you know what? We had to sacrifice. Once we got in the house, we only had one car. Friday night, date night, we didn't have any money to go out. So you know what we did is we'd go to the Freeport Public Library. This is the 90s. And we would get VHS tapes of The Sopranos. That was date night. And we would watch two, because we couldn't afford cable. We didn't even have cable. One car, no cable. We lived in a neighborhood. There was gang activity on the corner. Wasn't a pretty house, needed some work. We didn't do any work to it. But 5 years later, we walked away with $160,000 to buy the next house in Baldwin. And we lived there for several years. We also had enough equity to now buy an investment property in the 5 boroughs. So now instead of us getting money from mom and dad and in-laws and having people sign, now the next house we bought on our own. And that one was the single family home. See? So that's what you were talking about. That one was a single family home. And then we were able to buy an investment property, which gained in equity. We sold that one right before the pandemic hit. And we, about 10 years ago, we moved into the house where we live now. It's our third. And this one, third one that we've occupied, this one is actually a single family home as well. But now this is the one that's got the pool and the acreage and the yard and, the great schools for the kids and all that stuff. But we couldn't have gotten the third one without the second one. We couldn't have gotten the second one without that massive gain that we got on the first one. And the first one was not our dream house. But like you said, you got to be in it to win it. Real estate is not a spectator sport. We had to do something. And my mom and dad were vehement about it. As a matter of fact, when we bought the house, we had been living in my mom and dad's basement for a full year. My wife had given birth to our first child, but we were saving up our money for a down payment. We were going to move out. My mom and dad were like, nope, you're not going to rent. You're not going to get on the renter, because the renter path is like a hamster wheel. It's hard to save up money for a down payment when you're renting. So if you can, and I have 2 sons, and I'm telling them both, stay here and save your money for your down payment. I'll help you with your down payment too, but if you can avoid renting, that's better for the long term. Now, if you're already a renter, it is what it is, but figure out a way to budget your money. There's even some budgeting ideas in here, but start saving up, get that down payment, and figure out what you need to do to become a home owner, because that's the key to wealth: ownership. And you're spending money every month on living expenses, on housing. So rather than give that money away and let someone else get the equity, why not get it yourself? So that's what we did. Yeah. 2-family to start and then build from there.
So let me just make sure I understand. So you just did a little bit of sacrifice, take a little bit of time, 5 years, right?
5 years, yeah. We had a 5-year plan. I think we closed on the new house 5 years and 3 months later. So we were about 90 days off of the perfect plan, but that was the plan. 5 years, we'll stay in this house, and then we're out. And it worked.
Exactly. So you created a plan, you stuck to it, and there was a couple of sacrifices in there, but either way, you stuck to the plan, you ended up achieving the dream that you guys wanted to, and was able to buy the house with the pool and the neighborhood that you wanted to be in eventually, right?
Absolutely. And if for 3 or 4 or 5 years you can't go on vacation, that's not the end of the world. If for 3 or 4 or 5 years, you're only going to have 1 streaming channel instead of 5 streaming channels, or you got to cut off cable or something else, do whatever you need to do. It all adds up. Yeah. And we do not look back on that time. My wife and I were married 28 years in January. We don't look back at that time and say, oh man, we should have done that. We look back at that and go, man, that was so smart. That was so good. I'm going to put it in a book and tell other people to do it. I'm going to tell my kids to do it, because it just worked out. And I'm just so glad that my parents, that I had parents who were guiding me in that direction, because it wasn't that I was smart. And this plan that I talk about, I didn't really have the plan. They were guiding me. So I was very fortunate that I had my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, my wife's parents. He owned multiple properties. My mom and dad have owned different properties, over the years. So they were very much into the idea of ownership, and they were adamant about us not renting so much. And I didn't understand why at the time. When I look back now, yes, I absolutely get it. Absolutely. And
I just want to make sure, and did you or any of your family members go to Harvard or anything, right, to get this information?
No, my dad is an engineer. My mom and dad are entrepreneurs. They own their own business. My father-in-law, he's a Marine. He worked for transit, regular people, but they understood home ownership. And I don't understand what's happened, but I feel like the baby boomers bought homes at a different rate, especially among African Americans. Because I'm sure you're familiar with the statistics, but the most recent statistics that came out in 2020, which we're covering 2019 and part of 2020, virtually every group, nearly every group, hit an all-time high or a recent high for home ownership. Whites hit a 19-year high. If you look at Latinos, gays, whatever subgroup you want to look at, home ownership was up significantly, except for one group. Only one group went down. Us. African-American home ownership went down, and it's been going down. And that's a problem, because we have this tremendous wealth gap in the United States that's widening, and a big part of it is because of ownership. And that's why I wrote the book. It wasn't to, I'm not going to become a multimillionaire off of this book. That's not the idea. But if any of my brothers and sisters read the book and decide that they want to own a home, if I can help them, if you can help them, if I don't help them and they read the book, well, then I help them. But we need more of us to own homes. And that's when I say it's different for us. A lot of it has to do with us starting to build more generational wealth. And that's part of what's in the first part of it. The first 6 chapters aren't about buying a home at all. It's more about the wealth gap and why we should buy a home. Our need to buy a home is greater than other groups, because we're playing catch up right now with our wealth gap. And one of the ways you can catch up, we're not going to end racism. We're not going to end, a lot of the issues, the cultural issues that are happening, but you can probably in the next 12 to 36 months, make an action plan to become a homeowner. That you can do right now.
And that'll definitely create a shift.
Right, and that creates a shift. Now, I don't know if it's going to create a shift it's not going to create a shift for everybody, but you can certainly start to insulate your family. You can take action. If you're watching, right. That's what I've done. As I know, again, my father, he always taught me, and my mom and dad both, that, and it's a biblical principle, regardless of what your religion is, it's an ancient principle that a wise man, a good man, takes care of his children and his children's children. So I've been trained to not just prepare my children, but my children's children that I don't, and my kids are in the 20s. I don't have, grandchildren yet. Not rushing this, but the idea is that I should be doing things to prepare for them economically. That's how we have to look. And home ownership is a great way to do it.
It's a perfect way to do it. And that's exactly why I do it as well. Because my girls are 7 and I have a 1-year-old. Starting now, I have to be able to, look within myself because I know I'm not going to be able to see some of the benefits now, but maybe in their 20s, maybe I'd be able to see one of those, wonderful benefits. So absolutely, this is what we do it for, generational wealth.
Absolutely.
Generational wealth.
Like you said, you have a Harvard degree, you don't have to have a college, just whatever income you already have, turn that into something.
Exactly. If we can do it, you can do it. It's just that simple. I know it sounds corny, it sounds so cheesy, and everyone says it, but it's just that. It's that simple. It's just that simple. It's not easy.
No,
but
exactly.
It's that simple.
Right. And I always tell folks, look, I was speaking to a couple earlier this week. They don't have quite all the money saved up, and they've got some credit issues and some other things to work through. But I told them, look, we're on the path to home ownership. For some people, it's a 3-month journey. For some people, it's an 18-month journey. But I'm going to be on the journey with you, and we're going to have to fight at some time to make it work and push. But it's all going to be worth it. And they're like, "All right, let's do it." And that's the attitude you got to have. Get in there and make it happen.
Yeah, I tell my clients the same thing. Listen, we may not be able to do anything today. We may not be able to do anything 6 months from now. But the things that we do today and the things that we do 6 months from now is going to determine your buy power to be able to buy a year from now. So we got to keep going.
That's what I said. I lived in my parents' basement for a year saving up money. My wife she gave birth to our first child, not literally in the basement, but at a hospital. But we were living in a basement for a year. Would we have liked to have had our own space? Of course. But that wasn't part of the game plan. We said, no. No, that was, so yeah. So our process of buying that first home was longer than a year. Actually, our son had his first birthday. So it was longer than a year because we were looking before when he was in utero, but we didn't close and own the house until he had his first birthday the first week we moved in. So maybe it was a year and a half that we had to do all the stuff we had to do to get ready. Don't regret a minute of it. All worth it.
I'm sure at this point it was all learning curves that you can be able to now teach someone else.
Yep, absolutely. And I've taught hundreds and will continue to do so.
Definitely. So, we have about a few minutes left. We can definitely be able to allow anyone to ask any questions, please. I do see a few of you still checking us out, still watching. So please, if you have any questions, concerns, or anything that you would like to know as far as real estate wise, Quentin is definitely the best person to be able to ask. He's a lender. He will be able to answer any credit questions as far as getting approved. What is the most important things in getting pre-approved? Definitely now is the time. And if you cannot reach out now, I get it. Some people got to work late.
That's Aretha. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and you stop me if necessary. But there's one thing that you and I have spoken. We haven't spoken about this, and we might want to talk about it on another show. So I'm going to throw something out there that's going to get me invited back. I worked for Wells Fargo for 13 years, and while I was there, I became what was called a renovation loan specialist, 203K loans, conventional reno, and I was the #1 producer of renovation loans in the United States for several years. So I'm not just a local expert. I'm a nationally recognized expert. I now work for a company called Movement Mortgage, where I joined in 2017, and I became the #1 producer of renovation loans here at Movement Mortgage. So I do a lot of renovation loans. As a matter of fact, I did a renovation loan on the house that I'm living in now. So maybe not today, but I think another time we should get together and talk about renovation loans, because you could actually buy a 1-family and convert it to a 2-family. You could buy a 2 and turn it into a 3, or a 3 turn it into a 4, or 4 into a 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You could buy a house that's in distressed condition or less than perfect condition. And even if, and these are great for first-time home buyers, because you can find a house that maybe needs a new kitchen, new bathroom, the windows don't look nice, and you can build the money to do the renovations into the house itself. So that's a whole other show, of course, because today is about multifamily. But I don't think I had mentioned that I have that level of expertise and national recognition. So we might want to do another show about that.
Listen, you're giving out the sauce right now. At this point, yeah, it's a great segue into the next month's webinar, where we can definitely talk more about 4K loans and renovation, and you know, buying that property really low and then renovating it to something that is going to be great and actually profit you later on in the future. So that's actually
the third book is not done, but the third book is in the works. It should be coming out at the end of the year. How to buy a foreclosure like a superhero. So there'll be another book coming out. We got lots going on. So do you have any other questions? I'm full of surprises. You didn't know I was going to do that renovation stuff.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay.
Love it. And the funny thing is, I just had a buyer, like earlier this year, we was trying to do a property, we was trying to buy a property upstate in like Binghamton, and just, you know, doing a renovation on it. But it ended up being a 5-unit instead of a 4-unit. We found a whole nother unit in the attic. So that was a whole nother story. That's what it was just like, wow. So yeah, this will definitely be a great little segue into a whole nother webinar that we can be able to do and answer more questions for the public.
That's right.
Sounds wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, it's been quiet, so we're not going to take up any more of anyone's precious time. If anyone has any questions and want to reach out to us, they know how to reach us by my email. You can also reach out to Quentin. I'll also be tagging him when I share this post later on. Thank you again so much, Quentin, for joining us and sharing your knowledge.
Well, thank you for having me. And I think I've done enough to maybe get another invite. I'm hopeful.
Definitely will. I appreciate your knowledge. I appreciate you letting us pick your brain, and you're awesome.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It was an honor.
Definitely. Thank you again. All right, guys. And as you have it, we are finished with the webinar. If you guys would like to receive a copy of the webinar, of the magazine, please feel free to email me. If you would like a copy of the book, please reach out. Definitely, I would love to give you a copy. I would love to be able to educate you. I love to be a part of your journey to be able to get you to home ownership. Again, my goal is to be able to help 20 people this year on becoming homeowners. Please don't hesitate to reach out so we can be able to make your dreams possible. Thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Have a lovely day on purpose.